It never feels like the moment. Not when it's real, not when it matters. It feels like just another Tuesday, another blink, another breath, another quiet second where no one's watching, and everything is being decided. That's how most lives are built. Not in fireworks, but in fragments, in the decision to scroll, or start, to wait, or move, to dabble, or commit. You won't be warned. There's no flashing sign that says, "Here comes your legacy." It just shows up as a whisper, asking if you'll keep drifting or finally lock in. Because this isn't just about working harder. It's about never again becoming a man who knows what he's capable of, and still chooses comfort. Every man faces the choice, not once, but every morning, every moment, every time his alarm goes off and no one's watching, every time his plan gets punched in the mouth, every time he stands between comfort and calling. And the choice is simple: lock in or stay average. It doesn't sound poetic, it doesn't trend, but it's the decision that writes your life. Because the truth most won't admit: average is seductive. It speaks in soft voices. It shows up in sweatpants and good reasons. It sells you relaxation as reward and compromise as wisdom. But make no mistake, average is not neutral. It's not a place you stay. It's a place you sink. It is erosion in disguise. And if you don't lock in, you default into it. So what does it mean to lock in? It means you've closed the back door. It means you've deleted later from your vocabulary. It means you've declared not out loud, but in your bones, "I will become him," or "I will die trying." It is the abandonment of wishful thinking, the burial of convenience, the quiet war against everything soft, reactive, addicted, and half awake within you. Lock in, and the world stops feeling random. You don't wake up wondering anymore. You decide once and let that decision carry you through the storm. No more starting over. No more waiting for the right time. No more treating discipline like an accessory you wear when life is calm. Because you're not here for calm. You're here for dominion. Look around you. The men you admire, the builders, the visionaries, the ones who rose from the mud and rewrote the rules, they didn't get there by motivation. They got there by locking in. Thomas Edison didn't invent the light bulb because he had better ideas. He succeeded because he refused to let go of the same idea. 10,000 failures and one unbreakable standard: I don't stop until it's real. Carnegie didn't become a titan by playing nice with his calendar. He mastered steel because he mastered himself. Disney didn't create a legacy because he was creative. He created it because he was relentless. And Lincoln. He failed over and over until the country needed someone who didn't fold, someone who didn't flinch, someone who had already been forged in rejection and loss. And that's the pattern. Greatness doesn't go to the gifted. It goes to the men who don't negotiate with the mission. So let's ask a hard question. Are you a negotiator? Do you wake up and ask yourself how you feel before you act? Do you check your phone before your goals? Do you let the day happen to you? If so, understand this. Your average life is not a result of lack. It's the byproduct of hesitation, of delay, of tiny quiet moments when you said not now. And those moments piled up into a version of you that no longer liked the man you once promised you'd become. That's how slow death feels. Not in tragedy, but in tolerating the gap between who you are and who you were born to be. But here's the power in that pain. You can choose again, right now, today. You can lock in. You can stop waiting. You can draw a line in your mind and say, from this moment on, I move differently. Not perfectly. Not performatively. Permanently. Because locking in doesn't mean you never slip. It means when you slip, you snap back faster than ever. It means your lows are still miles above the highs of who you used to be. It means the storm might shake you, but it no longer owns you. You've chosen something deeper than feelings now. You've chosen identity. And identity is everything. You don't rise to your goals, you fall to your standards. So what are yours? What do you tolerate that you should have buried months ago? That habit you keep saying you'll fix. It's writing your reputation. That conversation you keep avoiding. It's shaping your character. That energy you keep leaking on things that don't move the mission forward. It's costing you years. You want to build something worth reminding. Then build a version of you that's worth trusting. Because no one follows the man who's hot and cold. No one bets on the man who flinches. You become powerful the moment you become predictable. In your execution, in your integrity, in your ability to do what you said you'd do even when no one is watching. That's the game. And it's not sexy. It's not social media approved. It's not a montage. It's repetition. It's structure. It's standards so non-negotiable they make the average man uncomfortable just being around you. That's the cost of becoming rare. You lose the room before you rise above it. But that's the price you pay to build a name that resonates. Because every empire was once a man who decided, I will not be moved. Not by trends, not by comfort, not by applause. He locked in, and the world eventually caught up. You were not born to drift. You were not built for maintenance mode. Your bloodline might be full of people who settled. But the fire you feel right now, that's not rebellion. That's remembrance. You are reminding who you were before the world taught you how to hesitate. Before they told you to be realistic. Before they convinced you that fitting in was safety and dreaming too big was a liability. They were well, but now you know better. And once you know you owe that younger version of you, the one who used to believe he could build, conquer, create lead. You owe the future version of you, the one who's watching every move you make right now to see if you're finally serious. And you owe this moment your full weight. Because if you don't lock in, you'll get pulled back. Not by force, but by friction. Because here's the truth. Average is sticky. It doesn't scream. It whispers. It doesn't attack. It delays. Average is the weight that feels like rest. The conversation that feels like connection but pulls you off track. The scroll that feels like curiosity but steals your clarity. The one missed workout that becomes a habit. The one skipped morning routine that becomes an identity. And if you're not brutal about your inputs, you will drown in a sea of acceptable distractions. Because most people aren't fighting failure. They're fighting comfort with no reward, a routine that's safe but empty, comfortable but corrosive. So you have to choose structure or sabotage. You can't have both. You either build systems that move when you don't feel like it, or you keep outsourcing your future to your feelings. And the man who does that, he becomes a ghost. Alive but unlit. Moving but not leading. Always planning, never producing. But the man who locked in, he doesn't want to feel ready. He acts himself into confidence. He repetition uses as resurrection. He understands that identity doesn't change through inspiration. It changes through proof. And that's the cheat code they don't tell you. Identity is not declared. It's earned. It's built in silence. In the 1,000 small moments when you prove to yourself, I said it and I meant it. That's how you rewire your brain. You do the work before you're certain. You show up when your mind says rest. You execute in the dark until your character becomes light. No applause, no validation. Just a scoreboard only you can see. And when you stack those wins, your brain evolves. It starts believing you. It starts seeing you as someone who doesn't break promises, especially to himself. And that's when the shift happens. You no longer need motivation. You've replaced it with momentum. And momentum is holy. Because once you had it, the same things that used to drain you, now they fuel you. You wake up differently. You move differently. You don't look at discipline as a prison, You see it as your freedom. You understand what few ever will. The man who is most free is the man who commands himself. And to command yourself, you have to master your first environment, your mind. So let me ask you, what thoughts do you let live there? What conversations do you hear? What stories are on loop? Because your external chaos is a mirror of your internal disorder. And locking in isn't just about rituals, it's about realignment. It's about cleaning out the room downstairs. It's about unsubscribing from the noise. It's about becoming so intentional with your thoughts that your inner world becomes a fortress, not a freeway. Because you can't build empires in the mind built for survival. You can't create legacies in heads full of junk. You can't rise while still renting space to old tales and borrowed opinions. Locking in means you claim ownership over your thoughts, over your emotions, over your time, over your triggers. You stop being a passenger. You stop being a reactor. You stop being in progress forever and finally decide, this is who I am now, not someday, now. And when that decision is made, really made, you become unstoppable. Not because life gets easier, but because there's nothing inside you want to run anymore. The war is won. The mission is loud. The man is decided. And from here on out, average doesn't stand a chance. There's a law in nature: no one escapes what you allow you attract. And what you attract, you become. So if your life feels chaotic, if your results are blurry, if your drive rises and falls like waves, look at what you're allowing. Look at what you've let linger. Look at what still has access to your energy. Because locked-in men don't just guard their goals, they guard their gates. They understand that energy is not infinite. It's not a free-flowing faucet. It's a vault. And every open tab, every half-finished conversation, every distraction you tolerate is draining power that could be building empires. This is why most men stay average. They build ambition, but refuse to build barriers. They let their phones interrupt their focus. They let group chats dilute their clarity. They stay in environments built for entertainment, not execution. And then they wonder why their discipline leaks. It's not a lack of willpower, it's overexposure. You can't become a weapon if you're constantly unshielded. So you have to start removing, not because you're better, but because your mission is bigger. Delete the apps, mute the noise, rebuild your space. Not to impress, to protect. Because the more aligned you become, the more violently distractions will chase you. And if you don't set rules now, you'll be ruled by everything later. This is the sacred work of elimination. And make no mistake, it's painful. Not because it's hard to let go, but because you've wrapped identity around things that are secretly slowing you down. That habit you call a release, it's rust. That relationship you label history, it's an anchor. That podcast, that trend, that inbox, full of irrelevant input, it's noise disguised as insight. And your greatness is being strangled by almost. Almost productive, almost aligned, almost ready. But locked-in men don't do almost. They live in absolute clarity, because once you eliminate the excess, you don't just create space, you create acceleration. And that's the part average minds never understand. They think more input equals more power. But true mastery comes from less. Fewer goals, deeper systems, tighter routines, one vision executed relentlessly. That's how legacies are built, not with scattered ambition, but with singular obsession. So kill the myth of balance. This season isn't about balance. It's about bias toward what moves the mission forward. You weren't made to juggle mediocrity. You were made to build weight. And to do that, you need gravity. Rituals, boundaries, force fields. Because here's the real flex. Not what you can tolerate, but what you're willing to walk away from. The party, the applause, the harmless scroll. The version of you that always needed stimulation to feel alive. Walk away, not in anger, in precision, because locked-in men don't seek escape. They seek expansion. They understand that sacrifice isn't pain, it's proof. It says, I'm serious, I'm ready, I've counted the cost, and I'm still in. That's what creates trust in yourself. And once you trust yourself fully, relentlessly, with no fine print, you become magnetic, grounded, clear, not just to others, but to your own destiny. Because clarity doesn't shout, it guides. It tells you what to cut. It shows you what's off limits. It gives you the strength to say no without guilt, because you already said yes to something bigger. And when your yes is massive, your no becomes automatic. So if it doesn't move your body, your mission, your mind, your soul, let it go. And every time you do, every time you cut noise, you amplify signal. You sharpen your senses. You reclaim your energy. You stop bleeding power into things that will never remember your name. And you begin building with everything you've got. There's a moment in every transformation where you stop thinking about what you want and start becoming what you said. No more pep talks. No more journaling your way out of doubt. Just work. Just rhythm. Just repetition that rewires your DNA. That's where momentum begins. Not with energy, but with execution. And once momentum hits you, become dangerous. Because now it's not effort, it's instinct. You don't negotiate anymore. You don't wait for ideal conditions. You move because it's who you are now. And here's the part nobody teaches. Momentum is emotional armor. It protects you when life hits. It carries you through storms. It creates a baseline so solid, even your worst day is better than most men's best. But to get it, you have to suffer through friction. You have to stay the course before it feels rewarding. You have to work when no one sees. You have to believe before the evidence shows up. And that's where 99% fall. They confuse friction with failure. They think because it's not fast, it's not working. But you've been building in the dark, and your time is coming. Because momentum belongs to the builders, not the browsers. You're not watching anymore. You're not studying greatness. You're living it. One disciplined hour at a time. One no-compromise morning at a time. One sacred ritual stacked on another until your life starts to match the weight of your words. And that's the turning point. That's where confidence stops being a theory and starts being a reflection. Because now your identity has proof. Now, when you say, I'm the kind of man who finishes, you can point to 100 days of receipts. And once you've built enough receipts, you no longer need validation. You no longer need to convince anyone. You no longer have to explain why you're different. They'll feel it when you walk in. This is what I call identity anchoring. It's not pretending. It's not faking it till you make it. It's choosing the man you want to become and behaving like him before the world agrees. It's waking up and asking, what would the future version of me do right now? And then doing that. Without permission. Without applause. And once your actions match that vision enough times, your brain stops resisting. It adapts. It becomes. Because your mind is always watching you. And the fastest way to rewire it is to show it consistency that leaves no room for negotiation. And here's the hidden gift. When you become that man, the one who moves before he feels like it, the one who honors his structure, the one who doesn't wait for clarity to act, you become unshakable, not perfect, not bulletproof, but grounded, rooted in something deeper than mood. You don't rise and fall with motivation. You ride momentum. You move with mission. And that makes you rare. Because most men crumble at the first sign of discomfort. They run back to softness. They try to intellectualize their way through a season that requires sweat. But you've burned the old script. You've proven to yourself, not the world, that you can keep going when average men fold. And that's the kind of power that can't be given. It can't be borrowed. It can't be bought. It must be forged. Forged in silence. Forged in reps. Forged in mornings where your hands shake and your mind screams and you move anyway. Because every time you do, you tell your future, I'm coming for you. And I won't stop until I've built the man capable of holding it. And you will. Because at this point, you're not hoping. You're executing. You're not dabbling. You're locked in. And average, it's no longer an option. At some point, the external no longer excites you. The likes, the metrics, the approval, the noise. You stop chasing validation not because you've given up, but because you've leveled up. You've seen behind the curtain. You've learned that the loudest men often have the weakest core, and that real strength, the kind that shifts rooms, moves in silence. That's the next level invisible weight. Power you don't announce. Standards you don't have to justify. Discipline that's not dramatic, just done. You don't need to be seen, because you feel yourself building. And it's enough. Mastery lives here. Not in a rush. Not in chasing dopamine. Not in reinventing yourself every week to stay stimulated. It lives in repetition, without resistance. In showing up with excellence when no one's watching. In doing it again not because it's new, but because you still believe. You believe in your mission. You believe in your standard. You believe in your future self so deeply that you no longer need emotional permission to move. This is where men become legends. They outlast the applause. They outgrow the platform. They stop performing and start embodying. Because legacy isn't loud. It's not built in press releases or viral moments. It's built in the unseen choices, the reps, the boundaries, the self-respect. It's built when you choose growth over gossip, stillness over scrolling, depth over drama. It's built when you stop trying to be impressive and start becoming immovable. Because legacy is just identity, multiplied over time. And if your identity is fractured, your legacy will be forgettable. But if your identity is fortified, through focus, silence, and consistency, you become foundational. Not a trend, not a phase. A man worth building on. But here's the twist no one talks about. The more powerful you become, the lonelier it gets. Not because you're better, but because fewer people can walk where you're going. Because when you raise your standards, you automatically raise your filters. You say no more often. You let go more easily. You stop inviting people to understand what they've never committed to experiencing. And that's not ego, that's alignment. Because the higher you go, the more your energy must be clean. No leaks, no drama, no explaining yourself to people who've chosen distraction over destiny. Locked-in men walk light because they've let go of everything that weighs them down. Their past processed, their excuses buried, their distractions deactivated. They don't build to be free, they build from freedom. And when that becomes your normal, you move with conviction. Not loud, not aggressive, but certain. People feel it in your presence, in your posture, in your eye contact, in your refusal to fold under pressure. You don't need to be the center of attention because you've become the anchor in the room, the one who doesn't flinch, the one who doesn't rush, the one who doesn't chase. Because when you're locked in, you attract what others beg for, and that's the final form. A man who doesn't talk about standards. He just is the standard. A man who doesn't chase motivation. He's moved by purpose. A man who doesn't ask, "Am I doing enough?" Because he knows his very existence is built on more than most can comprehend. And when he walks, he leaves a trail, not of followers, but of proof. Proof that it's possible. Proof that greatness is available. Proof that discipline still works. Proof that locking in was never about becoming someone else. It was always about remembering who you really are. There's a moment when a man stops searching for shortcuts and starts building systems. Not because it's exciting, but because it's necessary. He gets tired of starting over, tired of almost, tired of being inspired and staying the same. So he stops asking for motivation. He stops waiting for signs. He stops needing the fire and he becomes it. This is that moment for you, right here, right now, not next Monday, not the first of the month, now. Because if you don't decide now, you'll keep pretending you're becoming. But becoming is not passive. Becoming is violent. It demands a death, the death of the old version of you that tolerated too much, settled too often, and moved too slow. So let's be honest, not motivational, honest. Are you really ready? Ready to lock in? Ready to live like the future depends on today? Ready to burn the backup plan? Ready to stop explaining your standards? Ready to stop lowering your temperature just to make others feel comfortable? Are you ready to build without applause? To rise without attention, to move without the mood? Because the man who waits to feel ready is the man who never builds anything real. And the man who locks in, he doesn't wait. He moves first. He moves when it's dark. He moves when it's quiet. He moves when the voice in his head says, "Nobody cares." And you know what? He moves anyway. That's what makes him different. Not his genetics, not his story, not his talent, his choice. Every single day, he wakes up and chooses legacy over laziness, focus over friction, structure over stimulation, discipline over drama, conviction over convenience. And those choices, they compound. They multiply. They become a force. And suddenly he's no longer chasing greatness. He is it. So what's the decision today? It's not about becoming better. It's not about trying harder. It's about saying, I'm done living in negotiation. I've made enough excuses. I've tolerated enough weakness. This is the version of me that gets built now. And nothing will stop it. Because locking in isn't about hype. It's about honor. It's about proving to yourself that you were always meant for more, but you couldn't receive it until you were ready to become it. So what gets cut? The scrolling, the mindless validation, the cheap stimulation, the energy leaks, the false starts. You cut them all not because you hate yourself, but because you finally respect yourself enough to stop pretending mediocrity is a phase. It's not a phase, it's a pattern. And the only way to break it is to make a new pattern stronger than the old one. That's what the lock-in is. It's a system, a set of sacred rules, a contract with the future. You wake up, you execute, you refine, you repeat, and over time, you become undeniable. People won't get it. Let them talk. People will say you changed. Let them whisper. You didn't change, you returned to who you were always meant to be. The man who moves with force. The man who builds without the spotlight. The man who doesn't flinch when storms hit because he built his house on bedrock. And when it's all said and done, and you look back on what you built, you won't remember the likes. You won't remember the views. You won't even remember the wins. You'll remember the decision. The day you locked in. The day you stopped being a tourist in your own life. The day you looked in the mirror and didn't ask for motivation, you gave yourself a command. So give it now, out loud, in your chest, so your bones remember. From this day forward, I lock in. I burn the plan B. I rise no matter what. I am the architect. I am the standard. I am the storm. No more halfway. No more when I feel like it. No more tolerating a life that doesn't match the fire inside you. You're done waiting. You're done wondering. You're done watching. You're building now. And this was the moment everything changed. The world won't know the moment you decided. It won't stop and applaud when you delete the noise. It won't throw parades when you stop negotiating with weakness. But that's not the point. Because this wasn't a performance. It was a promise to the future version of you who's been waiting on the other side of your excuses. No, there won't be fireworks. No one will hand you a trophy. But one day, you'll walk into a room and you'll feel different. Not louder, not more decorated, just unshakable. And they won't know what changed. But you will. You locked in, and the world hasn't been the same since.